What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the DFS Army Bold Calls Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Kevin Allen, a.k.a. The GeeK. I am your host. I've got my man, Season Long Says, and Stattional, the sports gambling goat, all here on the show today to discuss the NFL draft and all the props and fun things we can bet on because we need something to bet on. I need to scratch my degenerate itch.
Yeah, man.
John, you know about scratching that degenerate itch.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I want to say happy 420 because I know it's a big day for you guys.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
It's my favorite holiday.
Yes.
And it is March 20th, 2020. Not March 20th. I'm sorry. April.
That's right.
20th,
2020.
2020. There was a lot of 420s going on today.
And with most people not having much to do, I'm sure there's been a lot of busy dealers running around town with their masks on.
Yeah. By the way, you introduced this podcast as the Bold Call DFS Army. I mean, let's not bury the lead here. This is the Sports Bet Army, the launch of our sister website, sportsbetarmy.com. And there's still a lot of stuff going on over there, which we'll talk about later. But this is a different podcast. This is in the sports betting world. We're not going to talk fantasy football today. We're going to talk betting draft props.
There are fantasy football implications, though, but you are correct. This is a sports gambling focused, and we're going to talk about betting props based around the NFL draft, what you can bet on to make this more fun. Listen, let's face it. We all want some football to bet on, and we all want some sports to gamble on, and this is a fun way to get involved, but we don't want to throw our money in the trash either, so we want to see about making some sharp bets, understanding the values, the probabilities here for various things that are going to happen in the NFL draft coming up this Saturday. And we're going to use the DraftKings Sportsbook as our sample sportsbook here today and just kind of look over some of the different props and various bets that they have going on. And we can compare it to, NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah's initial mock draft. He's very accurate.
Just as the reason that we're using Daniel Jeremiah is that we all agreed before this podcast that he's one of the most plugged in guys. He's not just going by team need. He's actually talking to the teams, Daniel Jeremiah. He's a former scout. He's very plugged into the general managers. So he's making his mock draft based on what he hears from around the league. And he's not, Ian Rappaport just tweeting out something that someone told him in the hallway. He's actually listening to people, putting his credibility on the line, and that's why he's been one of the most accurate. And when we say most accurate, we're talking about people that he gets like 10 of the first 32 picks right. That's being like super accurate in these drafts.
That's about. We were talking off air, like what would be an ideal or an ultimate number to get right and nail.
Okay,
for picking teams, like on an average year, how many. For between these mock drafters and these prognosticator types, how many can they get right in a first round? 30.
The guy who won last year, the national mock drafting contest, got 14 out of 32, and that was like an elite level, never seen before amount of. Usually, you can win it with 12, right, out of 32.
That's wild.
It's crazy, but what makes it difficult is one difference. In a pick just changes everything, so it makes it so incredibly hard to do these mocks. Once 14, one guy goes out of sequence, it changes everyone else's strategy potentially down the line. One trade that you didn't see coming, things like that.
Yeah, getting 14 right sounds impossible. It actually sounds impossible.
That was last year. That was, and again, that was in, that is unusual. I said usually like the elite guy, like if I did this, and again I feel like I know because I listen, and again it doesn't mean I know anything, I just know what I'm hearing. I usually get 7, like that's usually where I land, and that's including like Joe Burrow going first overall. I mean that's almost like here's on the SATs, John. Remember when you used to get points for signing your name? That's Joe Burrow with the first overall pick in a mock draft.
I played baseball with a lot of guys who got that part wrong too. So.
Brooklyn style.
Yes.
All right. Let's jump right into it. And you said Joe Burrow first overall. You can't even bet on Joe Burrow.
No,
they don't have that prop. It's so sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm trying to think, John, if you set odds on that, I mean, what would even be the odds? Like, what would it be? Minus 500,000. I mean,
No.
I don't know. Yeah, it wouldn't be that high, but
yeah.
minus
50,000.
Yeah, it's a. The problem is what they do on these, and even with these bets that we're going to look at, is they widen the spread. That's what you really have to look at, is how wide your spreads are, to determine. When we play just a regular old NFL game, NBA game, it's generally like a 10-cent spread, or 20-cent spread, I should say, from minus 110 to minus 110. These are going to be a little bit wider, so you have to be careful with that.
Explain what you mean by that, and how do I check when I'm making a bet against a widened spread? So my understanding of it is, listen, with a wide spread, essentially your plus odds are not as good as they should be, and your minus odds are worse than they should be. So the difference between the two bets isn't just that. Well, you know what? We could show it. You know what? Let me get my screen going. I'm going to bring up our sportsbetarmy.com.
Oops, sorry guys. Sorry. Do you have the right screen in there?
Yeah, let me open it up here. So
there it is.
If you're on sportsbetarmy.com, and you click on tools and odds calculator, come to this beautiful tool here where you can calculate odds. So I'm going to look up a prop here. Let's see. All right, Jerry Judy draft special plus 118 minus 143. Let's just remember that.
Okay, hold on a second. What is the prop though?
The prop is Jerry Judy over 12.5, under 12.5. So essentially, if you look at mock drafts, the first wide receiver going off the board is going to the Raiders, pick 12.
See, this is the problem there lies in. That's that's the exact projection of Jerry Judy. It's pick 12. It could be 11, could be 13. It's not one of those where like, oh, if this happens, that happens. Like Jerry Judy is a heavy favorite to be one of the top 2 or 3 receivers off the board. It all depends on which flavor of wide receiver you want this year. He is considered the high floor, high ceiling prospect, the guy that is not going to make you look bad as a general manager, that he's going to be a rock solid NFL starter with upside to be a top 10 receiver. So that's why he's projected to be the first wide receiver. Right. And the wide receiver sweet spot is right there. So it's how the hell do you determine the value there?
Let's talk the pros and cons here. And this is where probabilities come into play. Let's talk the pros and cons of this bet since we're doing this, and we'll get the spread and we'll try to understand if we're getting a wider spread than usual here. So the pros are, it seems pretty almost a lock that the Raiders need to take a wide receiver. They don't have anybody on their roster that is a NFL caliber wide receiver. They have to take one, right? So the question here is, number one, are there teams ahead of the Raiders that might also take a wide receiver, which would increase the curve of getting the top 2 guys, of which I think it is a universal agreement that CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Judy, with a very outside chance of Henry Ruggs, will be the first one off the board. I think that would make for a great prop bet, by the way, as well.
Oh yeah, I took it, by the way. I took Ruggs as the first receiver off the board.
There you go. Like it could happen, right? So that's a great bet. But
plus 280.
But if you look at the teams here, you've got the Raiders must draft a wide receiver borderline. You've got the Jets, I think, should take a wide receiver. Other people might disagree. You've got an edge rusher, I guess, here as one possibility. Andrew Thomas to tackle. Jets need a tackle, so they can go one of those ways. But are there any other teams here? Certainly not the Browns. I don't think they're a candidate for a wide receiver. Jaguars.
How about Jacksonville? Jacksonville could be one.
They have a lot of guys who are young, but no one great.
Right.
So maybe. You've got the Panthers. Probably not. You've got Chargers, definitely not. Miami, they got to take quarterback, I would say. And Giants, probably not. So, and no one's taking them up here. So basically, you've got 2 teams. From what I can tell, you probably only have two teams that could possibly take a wide receiver, and that's the Jets and the Raiders ahead of pick 12. So that's our starting point.
Do you think that the Cardinals could take John, what do you think? Do you think the Cardinals at 8 could take a receiver? If there's been some rumors swirling that they want to trade Christian Kirk.
I mean, I could definitely see it. There's obviously a need there, but they've got several.
Hopkins.
They've got. Well, they do have
Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins. They've got Fitzgerald.
That's
they've got
it.
Why would they want
Fitz,
to trade Kirk?
But Fitz is already
You've
said.
got to plan for the future here.
Why trade Kirk? Why would you do that?
because he has value and they may not see. Remember, this is a new this coaching crew, this front office didn't bring Kirk in there. He's left over from the last one.
That doesn't sink to me at all. He's a young player. He had a good productive year last year. There's nothing that doesn't speak to me unless they don't like the kid.
Remember, they drafted 3 young wide receivers last year. They're ready to get those guys on the field too.
Yeah, I don't see them doing this. I think they're going to do what they need to do. I don't think they're going to take a high-end wide receiver. So it would be a shocker. So let's go with the assumption that it's the Jets and the Raiders that are potential. So what are the chances of because if two of these guys go, then this prop right here, this Jerry Judy special under 12.5 becomes really pretty decent value. So John, tell me what's being baked into this number? -143. Hold on. -143. You've got some -143. That's an implied probability of 58.85%. That includes a VIG. Okay, let me look at the other side of this prop here. That is +118. Let's see what that is here. That is a 46% probability that he does not go. So 58, 46. Are we experiencing much, if any, juice in this bet, or is this pretty standard juice?
I mean, it's fairly average? It's above average for a typical bet, but you're seeing it's probably it's right around the ballpark here. What I'm seeing on a lot of these type of draft prop bets, and they're a little wider than a typical, like I said, NBA game and whatnot. Now on these prop bets, they're not going to take the size of a bet. Now that doesn't pertain to most of us, but they're not taking the same size that they would on a Sunday NFL game. And by size, I mean the amount of a bet. Because
so what would be the amount? Like what's the max? Or
I don't know what their max.
Depends who you are.
If I had a bet, it's gonna certainly depend who you are. But I would imagine this is. I don't know for sure, but I would imagine it's fairly low, like less than $1,000 or something like that. I'm guessing. Now maybe they're going to take more just because they've got. In this instance, there's so much more liquidity because I would imagine this is going to be the most heavily bet draft of all time because there's nothing else to bet. So they might increase. The reason that they do, people think like I'm going to go out to Vegas. I'm going to bet $30,000 on a Tuesday night college basketball game from a conference at the Horizon Conference or something like that. It really doesn't happen. They've got lower limits than sometimes your local bookie does. And on things like this, you could bet on like the Oscars. There's something that's predetermined, but you can't bet tens of thousands of dollars on it because of the fact that a lot of people can have inside information. With that said, you've got to be really you almost want to really look closely if you're really in tune with this, and I know says you follow this really closely. If something looks out of whack, if a line looks really wacky to you, you've got to really take a double take and don't say, man, this is easy money. And we say that a lot about a lot of bets, but specifically on things like this, where there certainly could be information out there that's not public, and the markets are taking into account, but you don't have that information, and ESPN hasn't broadcast. That info is not necessarily easily obtainable. So I always talk about this with stocks, or any sort of when I was trading any sort of trading asset. There's an old saying where if the let's say the stock is moving in a way that makes absolutely no sense, don't ever go against it. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if the news is all coming out really positive about this stock, yet the stock just can't gain any footing and it just keeps dropping, don't try to fight it. There's something in the background that we don't know or you don't know. And I would equate that here as well. So if you're looking at if you go through, and like I said, you're going to know these better than me, you follow these really closely, but if you say, man, that just doesn't make any sense to me, that specific line, there might be a reason for it. Now, the more aggressive person is going to say, I'm going to go ahead and go counter to that. And the more conservative person is going to say, I'm just going to lay off that bet because it doesn't make any sense. That's up to you on how aggressive you want to be. But that's one of the first things I would look at in something like this.
That's really smart. And I think that's a great way to think about it. That's the logical way. But we know, and that's why people come over to Sports Bet Army, because they get that training, that coaching, that mindset readjustment, that calibration from you. Because it doesn't matter how experienced of a sports bettor you are, there's emotion involved, which is a weakness in people's game, myself included. When you become at the a polished level where you're being paid to coach people, that you could take that out of it. You become a little more stoic. But all of a sudden I'm watching this puff piece on Jerry Judy. I'm like, this guy's going to go early, and I bet it stupidly. I mean, can you talk to that a little bit, because I fall victim to that a little bit with the emotional betting.
Oh man, we talked about this when we talk about the media, and forget about politics and fake news and all that kind of stuff. You've got to understand, especially now. I mean, especially right now, they've got nothing to talk about with the NFL draft. So you've got to be really careful. There's going to be a ton of information in the next few days that you've got to weed through. What I think you need to do in any type of gambling is you have to have some sort of a game plan. I think at first it starts with you need to, if whoever you trust, whatever experts, whatever information you want to put into that equation, come up with your mock drafts, and then start to figure out where there might be some value in where the odds are, and you've got to put probabilities on before you look at the odds. I think we talk about this all the time. When we do the Vegas GeeK Vegas lines, you're always like, when I looked at this game, I thought it would be -3 and it's -4.5. John, what do you think? You should be doing that now. Like, if you haven't looked at these props and you're really into the mock and you're really into it, start putting some numbers on yourself.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, because I was talking to GeeK about this last week. I said, oh my God, I can't believe, like the two things that I think are most likely to happen are 0 running backs in the first round. Obviously it could happen, and 0 tight ends in the first round. And the 0 tight ends was, it was close to even money at one point, or it was like a slight favorite. It was,
gotta get on that bet.
25. I was like,
get on that bet when you think it, not wait.
No, and that's exactly what you told me. And I was like, well, there's been a lot of talk about the Notre Dame tight end Cole Kmet could be a Patriots guy if they need a tight end. So I was like, oh, cool. It's gonna, they're gonna talk about that. It's gonna go closer to even money. And then what happened a week later? It's like -600. I lost it. It's like there's virtually no shot of a tight end being taken in first round, and it's probably still a good bet at -600. But who the hell is going to bet that? That's just that's like MMA. You never bet the Ronda Rousey thing. You never bet her at -800.
No,
just don't
take the -800. Now let's dive into this bet real quick, because here's the probabilities that I'm looking at to understand this bet. There are two things in play specifically for the Jerry Judy under 12.5 bet. Number one is, will he be the first wide receiver drafted? We have a borderline lock that number 12 is going to take a wide receiver unless some crazy shit happens like a trade. There's always a 10% chance of that happening. But will he be the first wide receiver drafted? Most likely a wide receiver goes either 11 or 12. So
what's his odds? Is it -130? What's his to be the first?
It's -140 for not for first
wide receiver drafted.
I'm
saying that he is.
I don't have that. That's a good question. I don't have that prop here.
Yeah, we've got first. He's plus 120 to be the first wide receiver.
And he's the favorite, right, John? He's
co-favorite with Lamb.
Lamb, okay.
Is 50-50? They're both 50.
They're both plus 120. Yeah.
And what's the Ruggs one?
Plus 250.
Yeah, I got it at 280. That's the one who I think has, again. I mean,
let's add these probabilities together. That's okay. Let's just add the probabilities together. Plus 120. He's about a 50. So he's got a 50 shot of being the first wide receiver off the board. The second thing we know from our knowledge is there are two teams likely to draft wide receivers in the first 12 picks. Let's assign a probability to the Jets taking a wide receiver. It looks like from I'm going to give him a 33% chance, because when you listen to different prognosticators, there is discussion about an edge rusher. I think that's ridiculous. There's also a discussion about an offensive tackle. I think that's realistic as well. Although if it's me, I'm taking a wide receiver if I'm the Jets GM here.
You know what the great irony is there? You know how like the Jets fans always boo because they take like the unsexy position because they want the sexy guy?
You think they might boo the sexy position?
This is the 1 year the Jet fans actually want a trench player, and they'll be fine with the CD Lamb set, but there's so much wide receiver talent in the second round. You and I talked about Michael Pittman.
We don't want to get that. We don't want to go in the weeds. So let's because we're sport. We want to talk sport. So if I assign a 33% probability that the Jets will take a wide receiver, and I assign an 85% probability that the Raiders take a wide receiver. Now we've got about a 50-50 shot of it being one of either Jerry Judy or CeeDee Lamb, not just to the Raiders, but also that 33% chance to the Jets. If the Jets take one, it becomes closer to a lock unless you get the rug surprise. So with all of that in play, is the right side of this bet? I think it is. I think it might be to take, like, what would be the fair value of this bet? And we're getting a 50 because I think the bet is pretty on. I think the line here at 58% is pretty much that, 60. Can you assign a 65% probability of him going in the top 12 based on those numbers, John?
Based on your numbers of 85%?
Let's say 85% that they take a wide receiver, plus another 33% chance that the Jets take one, in which case in that 33% scenario, it's a borderline lock that Judy goes in the first two because the Jets took one and the Raiders will definitely take one almost. So that gives you a much, much higher likelihood. And then there's that possibility that even if the Jets don't take one, that Judy goes first. You got a 50-50 shot.
So which bet are we talking about now? We're talking about the under
Judy.
12.5 or under 12.5 bet? Well, if you're putting up an 85% chance that he goes that. Well, that's true. That he might not go 12.
He might not.
So yeah, okay. So let's say, I see what you're saying. So we've got 85% chance. You're giving the Jets a 33% chance of taking a wide receiver.
In the Jets scenario, now you've got two of the top three most likely gone by 12.5. In which case, you probably have to sign a 90% scenario that Judy is one of the top two.
Sure.
We're only giving him a 50-50 shot of being number one overall. I'd go up to 85% that there is a possibility he goes Rugg, Jerry Judy, Ruggs, not Judy,
Lamb.
Lamb is more likely to be, I think, the first guy off the board than Jerry Judy personally. So I would lean Lamb going before Jerry Judy personally, but you're saying the odds say it's an even 50-50.
Well, yeah, that's what John just said on DraftKings, and that's right because they're such different type of prospects. Like one is higher floor, one is higher ceiling. In the narrative, that's why. That's why. So it's like, are you going for the home run, or are you going for the?
It's a lot of time to spend. But it's a lot of time to spend on one pick. But I just wanted to break down the thought process.
The thought process is important, and for me to do it in my head is a little tough. But what you're gonna do is to figure these things out is you have to put a probability on multiple scenarios, add up those probabilities, and then you'll come up with your number. So it's tough to do without putting it on a spreadsheet in front of me. But the scenario would be Judy goes. Let's say that. Let's just put a 0% probability he goes to.
These are props,
else.
right?
Yeah,
these are props. This is a parlay. What we're betting. This just gave me an idea for a parlay calculator. Next tool coming to Sports Bet Army. A parlay calculator, because why shouldn't we be able to add these three probabilities up and get a final number? So
you can't, but you have to. What you need to do is you have to figure out. Let's just say there's 0% he goes to anyone else before the Jet. Like no one's going to take a wide receiver, which is obviously not true, but let's for ease. So then you've got let's say the Jets. You're going to put it a 30% probability, 33% probability that they take a wide receiver. Right, so you got to plug that into your formula and say what's the probability now if the Jets take a wide receiver that Oakland does? Is there any correlation between the two or not? Maybe maybe the Oakland is only keying on one specific wide receiver, and the Jets take that wide receiver. They don't. You have to put all these into account. But it's not it's not simple to be able to do it off the top of your head. But I would say based on your numbers, there's probably if your numbers are accurate. Then the bet would probably be to take the favorite there.
All right, let's move on to a different one.
One last thing on that one. My non-professional opinion is the Jerry Judy bet is a dice roll. So unless you're just looking for action, that's not a prop that I see any value in from my non-professional opinion.
It's not non-professional, that too. But you're also on the Jets won't take a wide receiver train. And
no, I'm on the Jet. I said the Jets shouldn't take a wide receiver, not that they won't. I think it's very much in play they take a wide receiver.
I think the value of the bet is all about the Jets, not even as much about the Raiders. I just think if the Jets take one, you get about an 80% chance of this guy having gone in the first two. I like the bet in that scenario. If the Jets don't take one, minus 143 is not good odds because it's more.
If you're making the line, that's the perfect line. If you're the house, 12.5 is the number. You hit it exactly right.
All right, let's talk about a different bet that I like a lot, and a guy that we're all talking about. Tua, suck for Tua.
Tank for Tua.
Suck for luck. Tank for Tua. Everybody tanked for Tua, and now Joe Burrow's number one. But that's how it goes every single time. Never tank for a specific, unless it's luck.
Well, next year, right, John? Next, you watch college football. Next year, Trevor Lawrence, tank for Trevor is a real thing. This guy,
tank for Trevor.
Trevor is going to be like, he's as good as a prospect as Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning.
There we go. So tank for Trevor. That's what I heard about Tua.
I like Burrows here. I like Burrows too. But I mean, one thing about college quarterbacks is, and I see this in the NBA also. I want players that win at quarterback, especially NBA college basketball players.
You're not a big Jay Cutler guy. Is that what you're saying?
No, I really think there's a significance, and I haven't done any study on this, but I want a guy like if you were a quarterback and weren't good enough, especially at a big time school. Now these guys did win, so I'm not specifically talking about these guys, but if I don't want a quarterback who wasn't able to be successful. Not that there haven't been some, obviously, that weren't great winners in college, but I don't want to take a guy who wasn't a big winner. And Lawrence has been just a tremendous winner his whole career. So.
And John, conversely, I'm sure the opposite's true. Like, look at none of the Deshaun Watson. His arm strength wasn't good. That's what they were saying. But meanwhile, the guy won every big game that he was put in front of him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. Just guys who know how to play the game. It's so hard. That's why, I mean, these drafts, we're talking about, these mock drafts, and the guy had 14 out of 30. Even the guys who are doing this, making big money, and in this day of analytics, if any of us could come up with some sort of way to put data to who's going to be an actual good player in any sport, we would be set for life. It's just impossible. It's probably more art than it ever will be science, because you're dealing with human beings. It's such a tough thing to do, because you're trying to project a 21-year-old kid at 25 years old and do it against competition that isn't NFL competition. Really difficult to do.
There's clearly a reason why so many of these guys bust, and that is a big part of it. And also, I think on the analytics side, getting sucked into speed and different metrics rather than really looking at the player and his winning ability and his leadership and those things, which are very, very important across all position groups, but definitely at the quarterback position. Now let's talk about Tua. So the over under here is pick 5.5. And again, I don't know if DraftKings is going by Daniel Jeremiah or if they're pretty consensus picks, but
let's translate this pick. Let's just translate it. Okay. Will Tua go in the top 5 is basically what it's saying. So if there's no trade up for Tua, all right.
So let's look at the spots that he could go. There's the possibility of a trade up at any position, at any spot.
2, 3, or 4 is in play.
And I think it's seriously in play if he is a franchise changing quarterback. You have to consider every one of these spots as a potential move up spot. And quite honestly, the Redskins, take Chase Young. They could take Tua. Daniel Snyder.
Correct.
They can't take stuff. No, I think Haskins is the answer. I don't know.
Hey, GeeK, was anybody saying tank for Haskins last year? I don't remember anyone saying that whatsoever.
Not the answer. And a very volatile, very, very volatile owner at the Redskins. So that's a chance. How about the Lions? They got Matt Stafford. He's old as shit.
Yeah, but they would be a trade out spot. Like if somebody wants to jump Miami, that's where they would go. They would jump.
The other thing is who can out trade Miami? Like Miami's got a ton of chips, right? So there's a good chance if someone tries to trade up, Miami outdoes them.
No, Miami could play the I'm not going to fool for your bullshit game. You're trying to suck me into trading up.
Right.
You're lying. They could play a game of chicken. So you don't know. But yes, they could move on. We don't even know if Miami wants to.
John, do you think the Chargers could see they're looking for a QB2 and they have 6. They could jump Miami to number 3 because because Detroit feels like they would still get their guy. They would still get Okudah at number 6. So and all they would have to do, the Chargers, is give up their second rounder to do it. They wouldn't have to give up a lot to move up.
This assumes the Chargers want him. This assumes that Miami was even planning on taking him, which we don't know. So with all of those mysteries, obviously the odds makers are looking at this going, he's probably not going to fall past Miami, or at least that's the consensus idea. There's a chance for people to trade. But we've seen quarterbacks fall, especially injury history guys that we thought were great. We've seen them fall because, again, Tua didn't play. He's hurt. Not sure when he's going to be back. Training camp. What is the deal with him? Is he going to be back for NFL supposed training camps? We don't even know what training camp's going to look like.
Right. And if you're drafting him, you're already in your mind, you're getting him for 5 years. Most of these guys, when they're healthy, don't get into week 3 or 4 anyway, stupidly. So, even in your mindset, you're probably like, okay, if you're Miami, you have Fitzpatrick for the year. You say, okay, if we lose 1 year, it's not like the biggest deal. So I don't think that if you're drafting Tua, you're not worried about him coming in on day 1 and playing.
Again, for the purpose of this bet, does that mystery cause him to fall a little bit further? The prognosticators have him in one place, but the prognosticators are wrong a lot. We've seen guys who were discussed as top 10 picks fall into the second round, and especially at the quarterback position, because a lot of times you don't really know what the scouts are saying. Teams could be like, this is an injury guy. I don't want nothing to do. He's not even on my board. That absolutely happens. And we don't know what Miami's going to do. They haven't said for sure we're going to take a quarterback. And what if they like one of these other guys? They got Eber, they got a bunch of other guys to choose from, and we see surprises all the time. So my personal lean almost for every one of these is the over, because I just think weird shit happens in the draft. And like the more you think you've got it down and you know what's going to happen, the less it's probably like I always lean towards the under in every type of bet like this, just because who the fuck knows?
Hey, John, sorry. I just wanted to ask John something. Don't you have a sneaky Belichick feeling that goes up with his old buddy, Matt Patricia, and jumps up there and takes Tua? Don't you just have that feeling? And he outsmarts us all again?
No, I don't know. Is that a Belichick type of guy, though?
It is. The guys that win football. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Just because you've seen him with a statue and a quarterback for 20 years,
Right.
So you don't know if that, does he want to change?
And he's drafted other statues every time he's drafted a quarterback, by the way. If you look at the history of their quarterback draft picks, Matt Castle, Garoppolo, Kevin Hogan, a lot of these, I don't know if they drafted Hogan, but there have been a couple of, was it Matt Castle was one of theirs?
Yeah, Matt Castle, yeah. They had Brian Hoyer on the roster, Jacoby Brissett. They had,
Brissett wasn't a statue though, but
Jarrett Stidham is not known for his mobility. He was drafted in the 4th round last year.
And they started with Bledsoe when he was there. So
there you
nonetheless,
go.
I'm leaning to the under on this bet, just based on weird shit happening in the draft, and yes, somebody can move up and jump, but Miami can also, quote, not take a quarterback. So I think those possibilities. You give me 55% money on the overside. On the overside. For me, I'm leaning that way on that particular bet. I just think weird shit happens in the draft. I'm always going to lean the over, and just that we don't know as much as we think we know.
I like that. I like that as a general philosophy that people want, that everyone thinks the favorite is. It's like betting the under on this bet is like betting the over in like a football game, right? Everyone's rooting for the over. No one's rooting for punts, So Tua going over 5.5 is kind of like rooting for the punt. I think it's probably where the value is.
Yeah, if I'm looking for the value on the bet, like remember Aaron Rodgers, like why is anybody taking him? I don't know. And he's dropping down the draft board. Like
it happens all the time. Yeah, I like your lean there. But Seth, I got a question that might be, and I might be putting you on the spot. But are there any of these where you feel like they're highly correlated? In other words, if player X goes, then player B or player Y has to go really quickly. Like where's the run going to be? Because I think I don't believe you could parlay these. Probably for that reason.
Yeah.
If I make this bet, am I stupid to make a counter bet? Like, do you have any players like that you see?
I do. And I'm not looking at the DraftKings one, but I did see it on a couple of the other sites, and it's the two, will Tua go at pick and then fill in the blank. So if you don't think that you like the value on pick under over 5, will he be the first, will he be the second quarterback off the board? Will he be the third? So the number of which quarterback he has selected, 2 or 3, I think is correlated to the draft position. Now, I know what you're saying. Like, that's not exactly what you asked, because I think what the question you asked is, I think it's like in your fantasy league, when someone takes a tight end and like 6 tight ends go off the board, I think that's going to happen this year with the running backs. There's so many good running backs, but when the running back run starts, for lack of a better word, I think that is, you could say it's a correlation. But I think for the specific question you asked about correlating, I think you're going to get better odds saying, is Tua going to be the second quarterback off the board versus his draft position? Because trying to guess draft position is something that you alluded to in the beginning. It's almost impossible to know who's going to trade where, but it's probably better value and more predictable, because that's what we're after here, is predictability and probability, to say what number QB. He's the best prospect outside of Joe Burrow for injury reasons. He's likely to be the second prospect.
Let's jump over to some other fun prop types that need a little bit less specificity, or where we could get some massive crazy odd numbers. So I want to one of the cool things that DraftKings has on their sportsbook is you can specifically bet on the first, second, or third overall pick and who they might be. If you could see your screens, we were talking about Joe Burrow before. He's minus 10,000. So to go first overall, essentially meaning for every $10,000 you bet, get back $100, I believe.
So if I put down $100, it means I get back $1.
What's he at? Minus 10,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
$100
to win 100. Yeah.
For $1. Now
I would do that bet.
Do not do that bet ever. Ever.
I'm making a joke.
No.
Sports Bet Army listeners, I'm making a joke. Don't do that.
Don't listen to that. Never bet a minus 1,000 favorite on
10,000. Minus 10,000.
Minus 10,000 on anything. I don't care if it's a minus 10,000 that the sun will rise tomorrow. I'm not betting it. Now, first overall pick, Joe Burrow. Now, if you shock the world, can they shock the world? Take one of the other quarterbacks, Tua, plus 3,300, $100, $3,300. That's pretty good odds. Chase Young, best defensive player in the draft, plus 2,000. So that's an interesting one. But I'm going to jump over because I think Joe Burrow is so much of a given.
Well, here you go. Here's an example of how it could not do that, right? Like, what if I'm just going to make up a total hypothetical? There's no rumor. I haven't heard this, but if Cleveland offered you Baker Mayfield and their first or something like that, or 2 firsts for the number 1 overall pick, and to say, it's like, hey, you know what? We'll take that. Now we have a young QB that we think has some juice, even though he didn't perform well. And now Burrow doesn't go first, or something like that. You just don't know.
If they make that trade,
they're trading for Burrow. Right.
You're trading for Burrow. But I see what you're saying.
He still goes first. It's an irrelevant.
Right. I guess there's no way to get out of it. So maybe 10,000 to 1 is good.
He's going first. No, it's not good.
I'm making, again, just, exaggeration for clarification.
Let's look at second overall, though. I think this gives you a little bit more interest because there could be a trade down. So Burrow, a given. But let's say Tua is more exciting of a player than we thought behind the scenes. We don't know. One of the things that you find out every single draft, I don't need to study the draft to know this shit happens every time, is every single draft you find out, what we thought going in, what all the Mel Kiper prognosticators, the Daniel Jeremiah's thought, wasn't necessarily correct. The teams had player X way higher than what we thought, or quarterback Y way lower than what we all thought they might have them. So you see this stuff and you're like, wow, okay. And it turns out they aren't so forthcoming with their. So what if Tua is an exciting pick? Number 2 overall, you've got the Redskins there. They could take Tua. They could shock the world, or they could trade down. So there's all these scenarios where somebody trades up for a quarterback, plus 1,200 odds, 12 to 1. I put in $10, I get 120 back if I'm right. That seems like let's see what plus 1,200 is on our odds calculator. I just want to know what the implied probability is. I mean, it's 7%. John, do we got a better? Can we beat 7.69% probability? Could we say it's 12% likely? Or on a bet like this, I'd really want like 20% likely. Like, I don't have the same 5% value consideration on a massive favorite that I do on a crazy underdog. I kind of want like a 25% probability to make this bet. But is it at least a somewhat probable that Tua goes second overall. I think this is a bet that I would take. Plus 1,200.
By the way,
not terrible. You got some value there.
I think he should go 2 overall, because think about it like this, and let me ask you both this question. If, like you said, I was kind of making the joke before that people said don't. I didn't hear anybody saying tank for Haskins. Like, if the Redskins should follow the model of what Arizona did last year when the better quarterback comes up, and if you don't think that he's the quarterback, like, who would pay to get him at that spot? Right. So
doesn't it make sense to trade down if you don't want?
That's what I'm saying. Well, here, just hear me out. So say the price for that spot in the past has been like 3 number 1s and 2 number 2s, or 2 number 1s and 3 number 2s, like the RG3 trade. Right. And if you don't take that offer and it's on the table, that means you think that Chase Young, the defensive player, is worth that. No, you shouldn't just take the defensive player if someone's offering you the farm for that pick.
Especially, you might get, number 5 to trade up, Miami. And now, who's still available, but a really good player. So I like the Tua number 2 overall play at plus 1,200. Let's see what 3rd overall holds for us here. So 3rd overall, now you're starting to see a little bit of a tampering down of some of these crazy odds numbers. So if you can bet on the 3rd player overall, very tough. I don't like taking plus 125 odds on something that's so massively possible. I also don't like odds where you can't bet the under, like the no side of it. So you can only bet yes, this player is taken 3rd overall here. There's no way I'm touching a Jeffrey Okudah at plus 125. That's a above 50% probability that this player goes 3rd. I don't like that at all. I don't know what happened first. I don't know what happened second.
Well, hold on 1 second. The Lions lost Darius Slay. This guy's the best cornerback in the draft.
Don't care. What if they do something different? Shock the world. It's not a 50%. I don't want 50-50 odds on that. There's so many other players that they might take. I mean, like,
if they stay, it's a trade. It's basically saying, will they trade the pick or not? That's what the prop is. Because if they stay there, they're likely to take him.
But they could also surprise the world and say, no, I don't like this. I'm not taking a corner here. I'm taking a tackle. Matt Stafford needs more time. They could shock the world. They could take. There's 2 tackles here that are very, very good. You think they can't take Mekhi Becton? They can't take Jedrick Willis there? Anything can happen in the draft. We prognosticate wrong way more often than we're right. We already said that. That it's a miracle if you got 14 picks right. So you want to tell me it's 50-50 odds for this guy, John? I mean, no?
I don't disagree with you. I think when you're looking at these, you've got to be looking at the side counter or the dog side of these bets. Like betting the favorites is going to be a losing proposition. So you want to look for where can I get some good plus money shots at this. So yeah, I don't disagree with your logic at all. The only thing is, I would imagine, I don't have the numbers in front of me, obviously the earlier in the draft, the more likelihood or the easier it is to predict. As you get deeper, because of what we said, it becomes a lot more difficult because things start to change quickly. So the first pick's a lot easier to pick than the 10th pick.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But this could be that spot where they surprise you. Like, everybody saying your logic says is correct. You're saying, hey, they lost Darius Hayward-Slay. And now they're going to replace him with an elite corner. I say, hey, if they're willing to let Slay go, maybe they kind of think that's not an area that we need to worry about right now. We've got other issues.
You're a DFS guy, man. You saw the Lions play. I mean, didn't you guys target Lions defense last year a little bit?
Absolutely.
But not Slay specifically. Quote, not Slay, right? It's the Slay effect a little bit with the Lions. He was still good last season, is what I'm saying. He was not a bad player, but he does get burned by Marvin Jones Jr. Like, you can almost always count. Not Marvin Jones Jr. Who the fuck was it?
And so, let me ask you guys a question about this. And I'm not sure if this is going off tangent. Let me know. But it's about something you just said. You're talking about not taking the heavy favorites. Like, for example, there's no running back going in the first round. I think it's like minus 500 and minus 600. It actually went up to 750. I think yesterday it may have been tipped back down a little bit. How do you feel about props like that? Ones that are 5-1, 4-1, likely to happen, but I know it only takes one. So how do you feel about a value like that, where it's is it not in line with the probability? Is that a bad bet to make?
No, I would definitely be leaning on the side of taking the dogs in that situation. I don't have what's the exact numbers there on no
running back.
At least on DraftKings, we got it in front. It's so hard; they got so many.
I'm gonna look for the prop here.
On my bookie, it went from -600 to -750.
What was the dog side of that? Though? What was the
plus 400? Now it's plus like 480 or something like that.
Okay.
They always screw you on the other side of it.
Well, it's a huge spread, and as you get to the bigger and bigger the favorite or dog in whichever way you're looking at it, the spread widens.
But they did. By the way, they changed it though. They made it minus 1.5 running backs now.
Oh, okay.
By the way, as I'm exploring this, there are so many things you can bet on. I want to jump through a bunch of these because the range is so wide. We could spend hours and hours talking about this. All right, check this out. First round spread, total cornerbacks in the first round, total defensive players. You can bet offensive linemen. Let's see if we got running backs. Running backs in the first round, over 0.5.
Oh, so it is now back to 0.5.
Minus 200.
Oh my God! So no running backs in the first round is minus 200.
You can get, if you want to bet nothing, you can get plus 165. Plus 165
for zero running backs or for one running back.
Zero for zero in the first. Plus 165 says you like this bet.
Oh my God, I like that. I like that a lot. I think there's
plus 165 odds. Zero running backs in the first round.
I mean, DeAndre Swift to Miami at their third pick of the first round is the only possibility I see. Obviously, Kansas City could take a running back with the last pick in the first round. I think Kansas City's more likely to sell that pick. That's usually a good quarterback pick for someone gets the fifth-year option with the first-round pick. So
that's the danger zone. I think KC with that last pick.
I think Miami would not.
I mean, you could get running backs in the second round. You don't have to reach for first.
Correct.
So that's an interesting prop. Says approves.
I mean, John, what do you think about that one? Is the value good enough at plus 165? It was plus 230 about 3 weeks ago.
I'm going to say this, and I think I alluded to it before, and I wanted to make this point, man. This is a good one. I think the way to play these is, especially this week, is to start charting the line, looking where the line's moving, because what I talked about with this information that you don't necessarily have, there's a reason some of these things are going to move significantly, and the fact that that there's steam in that direction is making me lean towards that under as well. So whichever way, I really want to look at the price. There's my grandfather was a big horse player, right? And he used to look at like the exotic part of the board, which is like the exactas and the trifectas, to look for hidden money, like, the horse isn't getting bet to win, but he's getting bet heavily as an exacta play, and that was always an angle a lot of horse bettors did. I'm looking at that here. Like, I want to see where's the steam here, where's it coming from, and again, goes back to does it make any sense? So I think for me, where I'm not an expert necessarily on the draft, that's a way I would look at this. So I'm looking for some of these lines. I would start graphing these, putting down as many as you can in Excel, and then start monitoring it as you go and seeing if there's steam coming in on one side.
So yeah, just telling you, and that's a really smart, that's a smart, logical way to do it. So it started at plus 230, zero running backs in the first round, and now it's, would you say, GeeK?
It's plus 165. So
the value's gotten worse. So
they're hitting the over.
No, people are betting the under.
They're betting the under.
They're betting the under. Yes. So let's take a look at the draft board of Jeremiah here.
And I'd personally be surprised. I mean, I would personally be surprised if no running backs go. And I know that's the move now, is running backs don't mean anything.
Last year,
and I agree with it, but I still have a hard time believing every team.
Well, here it is. Miami with the 18th pick. Miami desperate for a running back. They have 2 picks in the draft.
They have 3 in the first round.
3 in the first round. Not 2.
Yeah, they have 5, 18, and 26.
Yeah. So I guess the conventional wisdom there is Miami with one of these 3 picks will suck it up and take these swizzles in the first round, because he's being predicted to go pick 18. 18 passes, they actually take something else. Now they're back again at 26. Miami does not have a running back on the roster. They
have Jordan Howard. That's it right now.
and Patrick Laird, baby. You got a little shake and bake going on there between those two.
Yeah. I guess the thinking is right. Like John said, the conventional thinking is don't take a running back in the first round. But when you have 3 first-round picks and you have a difference-making running back that's bulletproof in any system like Swift, why not?
I think I like Swift to Miami, like as a player. I don't like running backs on losing teams, and they are a losing team and will be for a while. But Swift is that guy who can catch passes and be okay even on a loser. Like so it might work out there.
Are there any? I'm looking for trade props. Are there any like Miami trade props?
Let me see what else I can find here. I mean, there are so many props here. It's actually hard to quite get through all of them and find them all. Team to draft a player to be drafted first round, top 5 pick, top 10 pick. I like this. Who will be a top 10 pick? Fun. What round will certain players be drafted? Second offensive. I mean, there's so much you could bet on here. It's like I said, we could spend hours and hours. So our focus is a little bit more kind of talking about what you should be thinking about when you're making these bets, because we could sit here and analyze a couple of different bets, and we'll be here all day. So I mean, there's a million different ones, but let's check out this one. Top 10 pick. Player to be a top 10 pick. This is interesting. You've got some of these guys that are projected just slightly outside of the top 10, where you're getting this value. CeeDee Lamb, obviously, we already talked about. It just does not look like he's got a place to go ahead of, the Raider. But what if like Miami shocks the world and takes the CeeDee Lamb? I could happen. I'm not saying it's unlikely, but
yeah, I don't think they have bigger problems. And also they're now become I'm going to put air quotes up for those listening, a smart team. They're an analytics driven team at this point. I expect them to make the right pick throughout the first round. Including,
let me ask you this question: looking at this list here, and I don't know if you can see it well. Looking at this list here, are there any underdogs that pop off? Because I'm not interested in betting favorites. Are there any underdogs that pop off as possibly someone who could jump into the first round somewhere, shock the world, get me plus 2,500 odds on somebody that could pop up into the first round, into the top 10 of the first round? Sorry.
I mean, who's like an unlikely player to jump into the top?
I mean, from this list here, so you have, could an Ezra Cleveland get there? Could a Patrick Queen, Austin Jackson? You've got Isaiah Wilson. There's some names here of
keep going. Keep saying them the names because I can't read them.
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love is the one that could, but it would be like a miracle.
It'd have to, because plus 500 odds, 5-1 odds. I mean, is it worth it?
He's a quarterback. Quarterbacks with upside are always, could always jump into the top 10, right, John?
I'm not betting that. He's not even
absolutely.
One of the. Jordan Love. Okay, so Jordan Love.
We got shocked last year, right?
I'm telling you, Jordan Love. I mean, again,
what about Justin Herbert as the same deal, right?
Justin Herbert is the type of pick that a GM makes.
Herbert or
Herbert? Yeah, Justin Herbert. No, Herbert. Justin Herbert.
It's only Hebert in Louisiana.
Wait, hold up a second. Where's this guy? Hebert? You're going to call this guy Herbert?
Well, that's his name, Justin Herbert. Come on.
I'm going to call him Justin Hebert for his whole fucking career. I hope he becomes a good player.
Oh, no. I mean, he is a good player. He's the type of player that GM picks that doesn't want to strike out. The guy that wants to keep his job. I mean, that's not looking to hit the home run or strike out. Like Justin Herbert, I'm trying to think of a good comp for him. He can move. He's athletic. He could throw the football. He's not a rah-rah guy. I mean, he's going to be a perfectly good pick. He's not going to, he goes where he's supposed to go in the draft. Everybody likes him. But Jordan Love got the Patrick Mahomes traits. He's got a lot of downside because he makes bad decisions, but Jordan Love does the sidearm throws, like it scrambles around the pocket. I mean, that's the home run hit right there.
There we go. So you've got plus 500 odds.
That's the guy who could jump up.
Plus 500.
Mel Kiper by the way, Mel Kiper and Todd McShay have a bet, a $5,000 bet of which one of those QBs goes first, Love or Herbert.
I mean, it looks like they're back to back on this list, but the negative point to the argument, and it's 5-1 odds. We're not talking about something that's likely to happen. If you win a plus 500 bet, one out of every 5 times. These are 5-1 odds. You're not expecting to win it. 20% chance here, but Jordan Love, where does he go if he jumps up? It would have to almost be a trade up of some sort. There's really no team.
New England. New England's the team.
What about Jacksonville? What if Jacksonville shops the world and fucking sends Joe Exotic take a walk?
I'm putting my fingers in my ears at Jacksonville Jaguars.
I know you're
sort
a
of
big
supporter.
I know you're a big and I love Gardner Minshew. I love the lore of Gardner Minshew. I love the whole thing, but he wasn't that great. I'm sorry, Jacksonville. You just got the little bit of competence, just the slightest bit, and you were so excited for it because you haven't experienced it that you're like, we have mild level of confidence at quarterback. Let's pay him $20 million a year because we suck all the time. That was like the Jets when Sanchez had like 2 good games one year, and we're like, yeah, we got a guy who doesn't suck 19 games a year. He only sucks 16 games. This is great. So I don't know.
Going back to your original question, I want to throw it over. Ask John. John, do you agree though? Like the quarterback is the guy that's likely to get pushed up, especially when he has like even perceived upside, like Jordan Love does, even if it's not real upside, it's perceived upside.
I totally agree with that.
Is there no chance the Chargers? I'm sorry, or the Jaguars take a quarterback? There are spaces for this guy.
Yeah, well, that I agree with
the Raiders.
I agree with. Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. Here's one thing that I noticed in the draft quite a bit. When you have a player, a specific type of player, in the NFL who just dominates, and Lamar Jackson would be the guy, right, from last season. People love to try to find the next one really quickly. It happened also with my brain is. Who was the return guy for the Bears back in
Devin Hester.
Devin Hester, and then all of a
Cordell
sudden
Patterson.
Yeah, but what's his name? No, it was Hester. And then I believe it was like the year after they went to the Super Bowl, and Hester was returning everything. And they didn't kick. They wouldn't kick him the ball in the Super Bowl. And then the next year, I can't think of the wide receiver who was a similar type of player who they thought the speedster who
Ted Ginn,
who's still playing, got drafted like in the top. Like all of
top
a sudden,
12,
he moved up tremendously. You see that happen where someone just and so who's the guy? And I think it would be a quarterback, like you said. So I could totally see someone overpaying. There's 2 things that happen. They do that where they try to find the next guy as if Lamar Jackson is in the draft every single season, or the other thing you see is the guy who goes that no one's ever heard of goes into the combine, runs, does an insane 40. And can the guy who does he can lift 225 more than anybody else, and all of a sudden somehow that's going to translate into being a great player, and the guy goes from a guy who's going to be drafted in the 5th, 6th round to now he's drafed in the 2nd round. We see that happen as well.
Jalen Hurts is that guy this year. He's the one that that doesn't look like a superstar NFL prospect. He looked like a perfectly good player to me that can get pushed into the 1st round, and people are making Lamar Jackson comparisons because he's a running QB. So yeah, he could be somebody like that as well. So that goes back to like what I think the best prop, and not the best value prop, but the one that's right on is how many quarterbacks in the 1st round. The number's sitting on 4. It's probably 4. It's a push either way, but what John just said, if you subscribe to that philosophy, which is a very sound and reasonable philosophy, then there could be 5 quarterbacks in the 1st round. So there's some value on taking over 5 there.
You take over 4. That way, if it hits 4, it's a push anyway.
Right.
And so you don't lose your money. You kind of have a little bit of a hedge there. I love the Jordan Love moving up bet because again, as you look through the top 10, you have to say,
but the Raiders have enough juice to get up there.
Not just the Raiders. I'm telling you that I believe that it's not out of the realm of possibility that one of these other teams, a Chargers, a Panthers
could do it.
Why wouldn't they take a quarterback? What do you have the answer? You don't have
Teddy Bridgewater. No, they have Teddy Bridgewater, who's literally the bridge. No pun intended.
The answer, I don't know, but they don't feel like maybe they do. I don't know, but I do remember a time when the Seattle Seahawks paid a lot of money for a guy, and Matty Flynn, I think it was, and then they drafted Russell Wilson, and we're like, you know what, we're gonna take Russell Wilson. Now, did they take Russell Wilson in the 1st round? No, but nonetheless, those guys could be a bridge, and it's not without the realm. Does the Jacksonville need Isaiah Simmons, a fucking safety, so much that they wouldn't trade down a few spots, pick up an extra pick, and somebody else go after the quarterback they want there. I think if you want a quarterback, if you're the Colts, if you're the Bucks, and you want a quarterback, and you're afraid that he's going to go to one of these other teams ahead of you, that you're going to move up. You can easily move up to the top 10, pick up pick Cleveland, give up a third rounder, move up 2 spots. You get your guy. All of a sudden, I get paid plus 500 odds, rolling in the money, go out, order some fucking prime meats online because I don't leave the fucking house because it's Corona.
That sounds like a perfect place to wrap this discussion.
Yeah, I'm eating good. That means somehow I turned Jordan Love trading up into me eating prime steaks.
I don't want Jordan Love is a prime steak.
$35.
You guys, again, I don't want to get too much into draft analysis. It's a prop betting show, but yeah, Jordan Love is he is like all of the good parts, his upside of Pat Mahomes, but all of the bad parts of Jameis Winston. I mean, that's who he is.
That sounds like fantasy gold to me. That sounds like I want on my fantasy team.
I didn't say the good parts of Winston. I said the bad parts of Winston, just so you know.
Yeah, but you give me Mahomes with some interceptions. I don't care. Interceptions don't hurt.
It's like 30 interceptions.
That is fantasy gold. I want quarterbacks who have the players against them scoring. That's why Winston's superpower for fantasy is that he not only scores touchdowns for his team, he scores for the other team, which means he's got to score another one for his team. It's a vicious cycle of fantasy goodness.
Cool. All right. Why don't we wrap there? Unless John has anything else to add. GeeK. Why don't we put a bow on it? That's an hour of good draft prop discussion. Maybe we'll come back one more time and do this again Wednesday, possibly. If not, certainly post draft to break it down.
It's a lot. So my take, and John, I want to hear your take on just betting this overall. We all want a little bit of action. Okay. So my general piece of advice, because we all want this action. The action's fun. My piece of advice is be skeptical of what the experts are saying. And when you're making these bets, assume that more of what you're hearing is probably wrong than right. In other words, take the dog money on as much of this. Do not bet favorites at all. Take the dog money, look for some long shots, do some fun props it's a 5-1. It's a 10-1. It's 21. I go in expecting to lose, but if I win, wow, there's a really sweet payoff. And try to do that with value. So that's my advice on bet.
I think I think that's totally correct. You don't want to go overboard here because obviously, this is more to have a little bit of action here. I mean, unless you have some sort of information, everyone else doesn't. But also, like you just said, to that point, when you do your fantasy draft for this season-long league. Do you sit and tell your boys like, I'm really liking this player here in the third round? No. And what do you think NFL teams are telling all these reporters who they're leaning on? Of course not. So the information you're getting is just it's not very good.
The Bears GM is giving away information left and right. He doesn't believe in distracting anybody about who he's going to take. That's the guy who still thinks Trubisky is a good player.
Wow.
But outside of him, what's that name says?
Ryan Pace.
I want Ryan Pace. Can I put for the next one of these, can we just have like a Ryan Pace face and we'll draw like horrible things on it?
And dunking on Ryan Pace, the GM of the Chicago Bears, it's kind of like when I play with the middle schoolers, I play basketball and I post them up and knock them over, the fifth graders, and I score and I scream and I stand over them, and like Scottie Pippen did to Patrick Ewing when he dunked on him. Like it's a little bit kind of like that at this point. Like
Ryan Pace on the phone with the Jets trying to pry Adam Gase away as a head coach.
Yeah, pretty much.
We speak. Like he's like, guys, I'll give you a third rounder for Gase. Like that's Ryan Pace. I'm sorry.
All right, let's wrap.
All right, so let's wrap it up there. The Sports Bet Army Draft Prop Show. Listen, bet the underdogs. Have a little bit of fun with the draft. That's what I say. Listen to John. He says, watch for that line movement, that sharp line movement. Beyond trying to think you know anything, believe that there's somebody who knows more than you, and there definitely is. So you think like the players on, like some of the interns on these teams aren't like, hearing shit and going out and betting this stuff on DraftKings. Yes, they are, and they're moving the line. So watch the line movement.
I have a good way to end it. Why don't each of us go around And because we're in quarantine and all that stuff, give one good TV recommendation other than the draft. We're all going to be watching the draft. Let's end on a fun note here. One thing that everyone's got to watch or read or listen to podcast-wise, because everyone out there is bored, which is why they're listening to this podcast. Give us one good one, John.
I'll tell you, I'm a big Rogan fan. I know you listen to Rogan as well. Did you listen to the Tom O'Neill podcast?
Oh, so good.
All right.
So good.
I have not read the book, but I went out and so I just
tell everybody what it is. Tell everyone what
it was. And I'm not a huge Charles Manson guy. I've never got into the whole Manson story, but this guy Tom O'Neill took 20 years to write this book on the whole Manson thing, and the stuff that he uncovered is more of interest to me, where the CIA was involved. And the CIA was doing testing on Manson, and they were running this whole program, mind control testing with LSD. And the book is huge. I just ordered it yesterday after watching the podcast. I was fascinated. It gets into some of the JFK conspiracy stuff as well. Unbelievable stuff that he unturned that I can't believe the book's a year old and I hadn't heard about.
Yep. So that's a good one. So for those of you who are looking for entertainment, John just recommended the Joe Rogan podcast with Tom O'Neill and then the book that accompanies it. That's a great for those who love conspiracy backed up by fact. GeeK, what's yours? What's the must watch?
All right. So I'm going to skip over the Chalk show, which is Ozark. Everybody talking about it. Great show.
Fair enough. Everybody knows about that one.
I'm skipping the Chalk to give you a little bit of a long odds show that you probably or you might not have heard of. Al Pacino. Show is called Hunters.
Good one.
On Amazon Prime. Really fun show. I just finished watching it. Fun show. I mean, to say the subject material is not fun, but it's an action. It's filmed in a really fun way. It's weird because it's a serious topic, but it's kind of lighthearted also. I really liked it. Action. Hunting Nazis. Who doesn't like to see Nazis fucking being hunted and killed? So that part is super fun too. Al Pacino, just one of my favorite actors. So the Hunters on Amazon Prime.
Love it.
You might not have heard of it. But
no, that's a good one. It's on. If you have Prime, it comes up on the banner. People probably skipped over it. Who knows? But good recommendation. Thank you. My recommendation would be if you didn't watch the premiere of the Michael Jordan 10-part series. I was like, another documentary on Michael Jordan. Who gives a crap? Put this on in the first 30 seconds, you'll be enthralled. It's awesome, and including the part where they tease it. It's in episode 2. Michael Jordan. They ask him about guys wanting to win nowadays, and they want to win. That's why they move to different teams. And he goes, "I'm not buying it." He goes, "I just don't think these guys really want to win. They want to be like the man or their brand." And he's like, "I really wanted to win, and I would have done anything to win." He doesn't believe these other guys when they say they want to win, and I love that. Brings me back to a time in our childhood where Michael Jordan was just this killer instinct, and he has settled the debate on who the GOAT is. And the only one that even comes close as far as killer instinct is Kobe Bryant.
Love Michael Jordan.
The Last Dance, it's called. It's called The Last Dance.
Felt fortunate growing up as a Knicks fan. Not that the fact that the Jordan-led Bulls always stopped the Knicks, which sucked as a Knicks fan growing up, but you got so intimately familiar with Jordan and the Bulls because you faced off and lost to them every single year in the playoffs, and you just learned what an incredible player he was.
The reason Ewing and Reggie Miller don't have championships is because of that man.
100%. Just could not get past him. So let's wrap it up there. Sportsbetarmy.com. You could go there, check out the prop calculator. We're still betting on stuff. There's still things to bet on. We're betting on esports. Bet the dogs every day. We're betting on Turkish league soccer and cricket coming out of Yugoslavia. So we got all kinds of sports going on. Very exciting to it, but actually a lot of horse ponies action. What are you guys doing over there, John? Like what's going on at Sports Bet Army right now in terms of things to be bet on? I'm seeing just crazy esports and shit like that.
Yeah, there's esports. Anthony's been doing some picks. He's been doing like Belarus and
weird country soccer games and
so there's just not a lot out there. Unfortunately, in the entire globe. I mean, it's an unbelievable situation. We were nailing. I was getting the soccer. I was doing Russian soccer and Australian soccer before and we were crushing it. And it's a lesson in, it's just a matter of having data. I don't know anything about Russian soccer, but as long as I know the data is good, which we can go into Russian data being all that good. I don't know.
Is it as good as Chinese Wuhan virus data?
Yeah, exactly. But it goes to knowing how to read it. So a lot of times I would go when we talked about with the draft, looking at line moves, and sometimes if it doesn't make sense, I was actually making money by the games that did not make any sense from a value standpoint, and then fading those games, and we were crushing it before that happened because a lot of these soccer leagues are notorious for fixing games. So anyway,
I didn't know that.
Let me do a quick impression of a Russian soccer coach at the post game reporters conference, answering questions. He tells them, let me tell you what we do to this team. We come out and we crush them, okay? Then I invite their coach to sauna. I tell him I want to have discussions with him, and he come to sauna, and I kill him there. That's how we compete in Russia. We see you, and we kill you. Okay? There is no mercy.
That's
good. I felt like I was
good.
there. I felt like I was there.
It was like John Malkovich in
Pay
Rounders.
this man his money. This is my club.
All right, boys. I think we've overstayed our welcome with our loyal listeners. So
no one has anything to do. An hour and 10. They're like, can you guys do another hour? Because
we'll come back.
Are you doing anything live maybe for the draft?
I would love to. If you guys want to get on and just maybe after the first 10 picks and just break it down live, I will. I just forewarning to the listeners, I will be drinking and probably heavily. So my analysis will be aggressive.
Maybe we can have a live kind of like first round party live stream type deal. Not get too crazy with it. Just watching the draft, talking about it, fantasy relevance. That's a really cool idea, man. I'm interested to do.
All right, we'll go live during the draft. You'll see me in my pajamas.
There we go. I'm in my pajamas right now. You just can't tell.
Good hanging with you. Until next time, sportsbetarmy.com. Come check it out. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.